The national conference this coming October is going to be called Think, the Life of the Mind and the Love of God. So the aim is to attack the issue of anti-intellectualism. That'd be the negative way to say it. The positive way to say it is to say, God has given us a mind. What's the proper place of the mind in the service of a life devoted to loving God? Not an end in itself, but the ultimate end of you shall love the Lord your God with all your mind. How do you do that? What is that? That's the purpose of the conference. Al Mohler is probably the one who's going to lead off for us in tackling the issue of bad thinking, or why our minds don't think the way they should, because I regard Al Mohler as a very effective public intellectual in our day, meaning he thinks hard about culture, about life, and therefore he's thinking about what's wrong with that way of thinking and how can I help clarify that. And so tackling the fall of the mind and what needs to happen so that the mind can be useful for the theme of the conference is what Al's going to tackle. I've asked Rick Warren to tackle the issue of how does a doer, that'd be the positive way to say it, a pragmatist would be the negative way to say it, take thinking biblically and rigorously into account. Rick will be controversial, and he's known not as a theologian, but as a make-it-happen discipler of his own people and globally effective person. And I'm persuaded he is rock solid biblically. And I want him to come tell us, how did you come to do what you do or be what you are biblically? And then I hope that there might be an occasion for us to do a little interview with each other so that we can go back and forth on some of these more controversial things. R.C. Sproul is going to be with us, we hope, with live streaming, because the doctors have put some limitations on his travel, but I want him there anyway. And on the Bible, the function of the Bible in the shaping of the mind and how he uses the Bible, because he's really a remarkable philosopher and theologian, and yet utterly devoted to the inerrancy of the Bible. And when he talks, I find that the Bible comes alive. So I want him to talk about the role of the Bible in the big picture of the life of the mind, because a lot of intellectuals, they just don't prize the Bible the way R.C. Sproul does, or the way we should, I think. So I'm really excited to see what R.C. Sproul's going to do in the whole dimension of helping us see how the Bible figures into the life of the mind on our way to the love of God. Thabiti Anya Boule has had a life experience in and out of Islam that I think fits him as a thinker, which he is in his own right, in helping us tackle the global issues of how does the life of the Christian mind deal with this global reality of Islam, and what are ways that we can think and that we can use our minds to be effective witnesses and have effective strategies for this really mega issue of Islam in our world. Francis Chan, I reached out to, and he was gracious to say yes for a couple of reasons. He started a college at his church, and that always like, whoa, not many pastors start colleges. What's going on there as far as the life of the mind? And yet, when you listen to Francis or read Crazy Love or whatever, you say, this guy really seems to catch the dangers of pride concerning the life of the mind. He's a self-effacing, other-oriented servant, and when I thought we need somebody to tackle the issue of pride and humility, because if you take the life of the mind or thinking as your focus, immediately the dangers of the Bible, Paul talking about knowledge puffs up, love builds up. I said, okay, we got to tackle that issue, and he just seemed, I want him to do that. So I invited him, and he said, love to try. So my task in the conference is to tackle a theme that I love to tackle as many times as I can, namely, on our way to loving God through the use of our minds, what's the function of emotion? What's the function of joy? Because I'm going to make a case that loving God with the mind, like Jesus said we should do, you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. A lot of people say that just means use your mind well for Jesus. I don't think so. I think it means use your mind in a way that awakens the emotions of affection and love and dependence and delight, which are love for God. So I'm going to try to figure out in my talk how joy between mind and God constitutes the activity of love.